right on time. Good for you. I'm Sharon Conley with the seminar committee. We're so happy about this presentation today. And I just wanted to say a couple of words. Could you hold your questions to the end if possible? Hold your enthusiasm. If you can, come up to the mic here for your questions. If you can't do that, give me a signal and I'll bring you the mic, okay? And Dottie is going to introduce our speaker today. We're so pleased to have. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Thank you. Dottie Favisy. A few months ago, at the Democratic Women's Club here in Gainesville, the speaker was Patty Duval, the library media specialist for the Alachua County Schools. What I heard that day just overwhelmed me. Until then, I had known that there were a few folks that was challenging books, but I had no idea the impact this had on our school libraries. Patty Duval will walk us through the burden of recent legislation on school libraries. Like me, I think you'll be shocked to learn how intense the impact is and the drain on public school resources. Join me in welcoming Patty Duval.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I always take advantage of every opportunity I have to share what's going on in our school libraries. I guess I have to point it this way, don't I? How's this? There we go. Was that me or you? Okay. All right. So I am a member of FAME, which is the Florida Association of Media Educators. I am also a member of FASM, which is the Florida Association of Supervisors of Media. We all work together to deal with what's going on in today's legislation and to try to kind of make sense of it all and do the best we can to be in compliance while still accomplishing our mission of putting books in kids' hands. So today, I want to walk you through the areas of impact that recent legislation has had on our school libraries. So legislation has impacted training of media specialists. It has changed the definition of what a school library is. It has changed our criteria for selection of school library materials, our procedures for selection, access for school libraries, and the process for parent objections has all been changed since 2021. So I'm just kind of going down the list and the numbers of the legislation, which is why I'm kind of going in this order. So prior to July 1st of 2022, the legislation said that school districts were responsible for training their school library media specialists. So our district had always we worked and put together trainings and professional development opportunities for our school library media specialists to teach them how to work with collection development and library selection and all those things. But the state decided that they were going to do it for us. So they put together a lovely training that's about 30 minutes long. It's a narrated PowerPoint slide, but then they decided that they would also incorporate a training for the selection of instructional materials at the same time. And we all know that there is a difference between instructional materials and library materials. So this training does a really good job of confusing the two. And so it is being revised this summer, but this training has caused quite a bit of confusion among our school library media specialists and among many of our parents who are objecting to school library materials, with the understanding that because of this training, they think that library materials should fall under the same criteria as instructional materials. So it's kind of messy, but it is being revised this summer, and I'm hoping that I get picked to be on the committee to do it. But as many times as I call Tallahassee, they're probably not going to pick me. So that's one way that legislation has impacted school libraries, is this training. This training was part of House Bill 1467, which became effective July 1st of 2022, but the training wasn't available until January of 2023. Here we go. Okay. So the definition of school libraries, this is really interesting. So also with the passage of House Bill 1467, the statute said that the Library Media Center now means any collection of books, ebooks, periodicals, or videos maintained and accessible on the site of a school, including classroom libraries. So that means that each book made available to students through a district library media center or included in a recommended or assigned school level or grade level reading list must be selected and vetted by a certified school library media specialist who holds a valid certification, regardless of whether the book was purchased, donated, or otherwise made available. So what this meant to our school libraries and our classroom teachers was, so all existing classroom libraries had to be scanned and approved by the school's library media specialist. Any additions to classroom libraries must also be vetted by school library media specialists, and all titles held in classroom libraries for grades K through 5 must also be listed on the school website in a format searchable by title and author. So with no extra money, no budget, and no guidelines for how to accomplish this task, this became effective also July 1st, 2022, but they gave us within a reasonable amount of time to accomplish this task. So we really got started this school year, and by mid-October, we had vetted, my 22 elementary school library media specialist had vetted 186,000 titles out of 476 classrooms out of 600, which means that about 600, which means there's many classroom teachers out there who just put their classroom libraries away and said they didn't want to deal with it. So our students are losing their opportunity to have a literacy-rich environment because of House Bill 1467 and the impact it had on school libraries and classroom libraries. The cost to the district, we felt that we were fortunate because we did not hire an outside vendor like most districts in Florida did to accomplish this task. We did it ourselves. We built our own tool, developed our own procedures to accomplish this. And each media specialist was given 3 days to come to the district office and work through the lists that they had. To find substitutes for 22 school library media specialists for 3 days costs in the neighborhood of $11,000. And so our district is out $11,000 to cover the cost of this task. But this is an ongoing process. It doesn't end. It didn't end when those 3 days were up. Teachers are always adding and subtracting. We get new teachers with new classroom libraries. And so it's an ongoing process. And so my 22 elementary school library media specialists are trying to figure out how to manage that along with the duties that they're already assigned, which includes for most of them, teaching classes all day long and collecting and curating a library collection. So it's a little bit of a daunting task. We figured out how to be in compliance. It's probably not the best way, but it's the best we could do, and to encourage teachers to keep those books in your classroom. We're going to figure it out. Just don't get rid of them. Don't pack them up. And so that's where we are with that piece of House Bill 1467. The criteria for selection for school libraries, it didn't necessarily change for us because our libraries already had certified school library media specialists, and we were already using best practices for selecting library materials. We were already making sure that they were in compliance with they were not pornographic, that they were age appropriate, grade level appropriate. But these guidelines really solidified what that selection criteria should look like. But again, we were already using those best practices. So the requirements for selecting school library materials, there are three criteria. Number one is no pornography. We'll talk about that in a second. It has to be suited to the student's needs and their ability to comprehend the material, and it must be appropriate for the grade level and age group for which the materials are made available. And I know you hear all the time about all the pornography in our school libraries. We are just filled with it. Yeah, you know, all school library media specialists are just peddling pornography. So what that means is, so statute 847.012 has to do with the distribution of harmful materials, basically the distribution of pornography. And it has always been in the statute that this type of material was not allowed in school libraries. No kidding. But it clarified it in the statute. It clarifies that what it means by pornographic materials. And it also clarifies that in order to be considered pornographic, it must be harmful to minors. And to be harmful to minors, there's 3 sets of criteria, and the material must meet all 3 of those in order to be considered harmful to minors or to be considered pornographic materials. So as you can see from the definition, the material must be predominantly appeal to a prurient, shameful, or morbid interest. The material must be patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the community and taken as a whole without serious artistic, political, or literary value. So no material in a school library meets any of those criteria, and therefore there are no materials in our school that are considered harmful to minors, and there's no pornography in our school libraries based on that definition. All right, so we're cool. Nobody's going to jail. We do not have pornography in our libraries. Now, the other pieces of the selection criteria include that it's suited to the student needs and their ability to comprehend the material. So the question is, how does a library media specialist determine that? What criteria do they use to determine whether it meets their student needs or not? Well, again, best practices, which we've always done anyway. We build library collections that are diverse. They have a wide range of appeal, they have diversity, and they represent different points of view. That is how we meet the selection criteria established by the state of Florida for making sure that our students, our collections are suited to our student needs. We don't know every single student. We don't know what all of their home lives are like. We don't know what's going on at home. So if we make sure that, or what their interests are, so we just make sure we have a little bit of everything, because that's what a library is supposed to be, a place of inquiry, a place where students can go and find themselves in books and see families like theirs and see students with interests like theirs, or see someone who they can aspire to be. That's what a school library is for. That's how we make sure that we build collections that are suited to their needs and their ability to comprehend the material. The second piece, the third piece of the criteria for selecting school library materials is to make sure that they are age appropriate and grade level appropriate. And we rely on publisher recommendations and professionally recognized peer-reviewed journals to give us that information. Again, those are best practices that we have always done, but now it is statute that we must consult peer-reviewed journals. They've also added, oh, it's coming to the next slide. So the selection criteria is really, for us, it hasn't changed. We've always been doing these things. I don't know, other districts that did not have certified school library media specialists in every school like we did, probably didn't have library collections that looked like ours did. So when this piece of legislation came out in July 1st of 2022, we felt like we didn't have anything to worry about because we were already doing those things. So the selection criteria piece didn't really change for us. It just solidified that we were doing it correctly, basically. Now, the procedure for selection did change a little bit. So now it requires that we consult those peer-reviewed journals. Okay, we were doing that anyway. It also said that we must solicit input from our school community stakeholders. That's another piece of best practices that most of our library media specialists were already doing. We already had a library advisory council established in our school that we were able to consult if we felt like we wanted input about new acquisitions or library programming, things like that. So most of our librarians already had a library advisory council to help solicit that input. But the state did make it mandatory with the passing of House Bill 1467 that said that we must consult school community stakeholders without a definition of who those stakeholders were, without a definition of how we were supposed to solicit that information, or what kind of documentation they were looking for to ensure that we were meeting that standard or that piece of legislation. So our school library media specialists right now, we have a twofold approach. They can either use their school library advisory council. So if they have new acquisitions that they would like to make for their library, they give a list, they put together a list of the titles and the reviews that go with them, because our major vendors all supply that information to us. They share that list with their library advisory council, and the library advisory council can review it. They can provide input. I don't know about this title. How about if you have more of these things? And it's a collaborative effort between the librarian and the stakeholders. Another way that media specialists are accomplishing this task of making sure that we consult community stakeholders is through their school advisory council. Now, this is not necessarily a function of the school advisory council as far as what their bylaws say and what their duties are, but we do, some media specialists do use their school advisory council as their community stakeholders, and they provide them with a list at a meeting. They have the opportunity to go through it, get back to the media specialist, and it's documented through their the meeting minutes and any exchanges that the media specialist has. So that's one way that we can document that we have consulted school community stakeholders, which we pretty much, we were doing to a degree, but now we do it to the degree that we have documentation that we have solicited this input. Now, it's a little overwhelming to a new media specialist who is making their first order, and they have anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 to spend, depending on what their school enrollment is, with the money that they receive every year, to put together a list, to make sure that they share that list, that they get input, that they get it back in a timely manner. That it's just a very overwhelming task for a school library media specialist. But we're figuring it out, and we're just taking it one step at a time, and we'll tweak our process as we go. But my biggest concern is that we have to make sure that we have documentation that we are in compliance with the legislation. So, and again, there was no guidelines from the state as to how to do that. They left it. And so I work with the other media supervisors in the state, and we all say, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What are you guys doing? So that we can collaborate and share ideas. Now, library access is another piece that the state mandated. We were already doing it, just not in a formal way, in that parents have always had the opportunity to reach out to their school library media specialist and say, I would prefer that my child not check out books about a certain topic. We've always worked with parents because parents do have the right and should be able to monitor what their children have access to. And if it, and that's great. I would support that 100%, but we always have done that. Anytime a parent reaches out, a student brings a book home and the parent might not be happy about the topic, or it doesn't really coincide with their family values, they can just reach out to the media specialist. I would like for Johnny not to check out any more books about that. Okay, not a problem. We make sure that that happens. Now there's a formal process to do it, in which schools, parents have the opportunity to say, I want my child's access to the library limited. And then they have the opportunity to tell us, you know, what they want limited. Or they could say, I don't want my child to go to the library at all. Okay. If that is you as a parent, if that is your choice for your child, we would be happy to honor that for you. But again, the state just said we have to post a form on the website that gives the parents the opportunity to limit their child's access with no guidelines as to what that form should look like, what that limited access should look like. And so some districts have taken it to the extreme and made their library access an opt-in model instead of an opt-out model. There are 4 districts in the state of Florida whose children cannot go to the library unless their parents have signed a form saying they can. And out of those districts, 40% of their students do not have access to school libraries, not because their parents said no, but because they didn't bring the form back. But because the state did not clarify, and because some districts are, have interpreted it in a certain way and want to make sure that they are in compliance, they have taken it to the extreme. We have not. The form has been on our district website for a year and a half, and we have had one parent fill it out with a very valid request. Now, actually, we have had two parents fill it out, but the second request wasn't a valid request. And so we were not able to honor it in the way that the parent requested that we honored it. So we reached out to the parent and said, just exactly what would you not like your child to have access to? And we just haven't come to an agreement as to exactly what that means. This is a parent who is frequently challenging library materials, who is familiar with the state training, and who says that they don't want their child to have access to anything that isn't in compliance with the state training. Well, the state training, as I mentioned earlier, confuses instructional materials with library materials. So until that is cleared up, that's a request that we really can't honor in the way that the parent would like it honored. So, so that child is still checking out library books, and mom hasn't sent them back yet. So, okay, right? So, and then in addition to, and so parent objections, and this is the biggest thing. This is what we're really aside from the classroom libraries, but that was last semester. We got that covered. We figured that out. So as of July 1st, 2023, with the passage of House Bill 1069, that piece of legislation had all kinds of things in it, but buried deep in it was the legislation that affected school library and parent objections. So they made it very clear that we had to have a form on our website, which we already did. We already had a form on our website asking, for parents to complete if they had an objection to materials. And then it added a piece that said, in addition to if the material is pornographic, which of course it's not because we don't have any pornography in our library, but they pulled out of the pornography definition the term sexual conduct. So if a parent proffers evidence that a school library book depicts or describes sexual conduct, regardless of the text itself, regardless of how much of the text includes this, how it contributes or doesn't contribute to the plot, any of those things, if it has a passage in the text that depicts or describes sexual conduct, which is a very vague definition, I might add, and a parent proffers evidence that it contains this, then we have to review it and we have to remove it. Now, our approach was, yeah, we know we got some books in our high school libraries that might depict or describe sexual conduct, but they're not considered pornography because they meet the selection criteria for school library materials. So we did not pre-censor. We didn't go looking for that material. If a parent places an objection that this and provides us with the passage that could perhaps meet the criteria for depicting or describing sexual conduct, then we'll look at it. But we are not seeking out titles that could perhaps meet that criteria. So for example, some of you may be familiar with some readings that occurred at the school board meeting last Tuesday night, where parents were reading passages from school library books that depict and describe sexual conduct. Those library books met the selection criteria for school library materials because they did not meet the criteria as being harmful to minors. But there have been no objections placed on those titles. So we are not looking for them. Now, if there is an objection placed, then we do have to look at it. The other piece of the legislation that has to do with the reading at the school board meetings that's really interesting is that, and I didn't put it up here, but if there's an objection placed for a book that a parent says it might have depict or describe sexual conduct, and there is an objection placed, and someone at the school board meeting stands up and starts reading a passage from that book, if they are not given the full 3 minutes, if someone on the school board cuts them off and says, stop reading, that book must automatically be removed. Yes, no review, no discussion, no public input. The book has to be removed. That is what the law says. One person. Yes. No committee discussion.
On school
Right.
board members.
Yes. If the school board member stops them before the 3 minutes are up, that book has to be removed. So you can see how that could maybe create a collusion, not in our school board, but in some school boards, where there's been a deal between one school board member and some citizens who said, I want to read this book. I want this book off the shelf. I put an objection in, but it's at the bottom of the list. Nobody's going to see it for a while. I'm going to read this passage and you're going to stop me. And then the book will have to go. Yes, that's okay. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
What is the logic behind removing a book because what's being read in that meeting did not, they didn't complete the reading?
Because of the logic, I think it's state legislation, so I really don't understand logic either. But the idea is that if it was too awful or too awful to listen to for 3 minutes, then it must be too awful to be in a school library. I know it doesn't make sense. Neither does half of the things we're talking about. Yes, yes. We're almost done. I have 2 slides left and then we're almost done. So, but yes, because this is where most of our questions are going to come. So, so if a parent proffers evidence that the book does contain a passage that depicts or describes sexual conduct, and what that means is based on the criminal definition of sexual conduct, there are 8 acts that are considered, against the law that depict or describe sexual conduct. And if the description in the passage meets any of those 8 acts, then the book has to be removed. So it's okay if you get to first base, but second base is out, basically. That's kind of the way we kind of look at it. So our process for reviewing library materials, a citizen's request for evaluation of library materials can be found on our school board website. As mandated by the state of Florida. We always had one there. This isn't anything new. They did actually give us a form that they wanted us to use. So that's the only thing that they have given us that said, do it this way. Everything else has been completely subjective. So we have a form. A parent can complete the form and submit it to the principal of the school where they're placing the objection. And then that form will come to myself. It will go to the staff attorney and it will go to the director of curriculum. So we do not do individual school level reviews anymore. We used to go to the school and we had a school level review and the parent still wasn't happy. It went to the district and that was unproductive. It was expensive because these meetings have to be open to the public, but without public comment, it was difficult to coordinate that on a school campus. Right? During the school day when students are there and you have to work around the schedule. And it was just becoming increasingly difficult to do that. And the results were always the same. And it was always going to a district review anyway. So we decided that, that's above my pay grade, but it was decided that we would eliminate the school level review and we would go straight to a district level review. And because of the number of challenges that we were receiving, which you're going to see in a minute, the number of challenges that we were receiving, we had to set a schedule of when we were going to meet. So we meet twice a month. Our district level advisory council meets twice a month. If there is a book to review, which there always has been, we meet twice a month. Our district library advisory council consists of the director of curriculum, myself as the district media specialist, our student services supervisor, a curriculum content area specialist, depending on what the book is about, and a parent of the child, a child who has access to that material. So if the book is held in 3 different libraries, we can have a parent from one of those 3 schools serve on the committee. It doesn't have to be the school at which the objection is made, okay? So once we have our district level review, we make a recommendation to either keep the book on the shelf or to remove the book from the shelf. I can assure you that aside from the sexual conduct piece where we are required to remove the book, we will not vote to remove any book from any of our school libraries. We stand behind every book in our libraries because they meet the selection criteria defined by the state of Florida. And we will not remove a book unless we absolutely have to. So thank you. So needless to say, that means that more often than not, the objection is not resolved. And so then the requester has the right to request a second level review, which is at a hearing where we hire an outside hearing officer. Our school district pays for an outside hearing officer to listen to a presentation by the objector and a presentation by our school district, for each side of the argument. We have also included, in an effort to make sure that we were being fair, each side was allowed to call a witness or two to document, to speak on behalf of each side's argument. This has gotten kind of messy. And so we're working on maybe, we're still going to be able to have witnesses, but we're just working on maybe making it a little less hostile and a little less, more focused on, is this book appropriate as opposed to, what your opinion is, right? Let's stick to the facts, people, right? And so it's gotten a little messy, but I think we're kind of getting the hang of it now. We've taken a couple different setups and timing and, for these hearings, but I think we finally have a system down that is amenable to everyone. Each side has 1 hour, or else we'd be there all day to present their case, and that includes their opening statement, the witness cross-examination, and their closing argument. So each side has 1 hour. Yeah. And so not only are we paying a hearing officer to do this, right? But you've got more often that in the last 3 hearings that we've had, we've also had a school principal, a school level media specialist, myself, the director of curriculum, the staff attorney's assistant are all tied up in this meeting, in this hearing, when there is real work to be done at those schools. That principal has real work to do at her school, and to be tied up doing this is really not productive. It is not in the best interest of the students at that school. So it's gotten expensive. It's gotten very expensive. We have 4 hearings left this school year. We'll look at those in just a minute. So what happens at the hearing is the hearing officer will make a recommendation to the board. And then at the board workshop or at the school board meeting, this is the opportunity for public input. Up until now, we have had no opportunity for public input other than the objector. So now at the school board meeting, this is where the citizens have the opportunity to speak in favor of or against keeping the book on the shelf. So, so that is where we get the public input piece. And then after reviewing the recommendation from the hearing officer and hearing the public input, then the board will make a decision. So far, we've had 2 instances where a decision did go to the board, and the hearing officer recommended that in both instances that the book stay on the shelf, and the board agreed. So, so that's where we are with the board decision. So overall, this is where we are currently in our, thank you. There you go. So this is where we are right now with challenge materials. Okay. These are all the books that have been challenged. Some of them had been challenged more than once by more than one person. This information is available on our district website. There's a big spreadsheet that you can see on our district website. You can go to the media services page and you can see who the challenger is, what the objection was for. But I wasn't sure if I would had internet access, so I didn't want to try to provide a link to it. So this is the summary. Everything that was removed because of sexual conduct, because it had at least one passage that depicted or described sexual conduct. Now, none of these that were removed went to the board for final approval because we did not have that process in place yet. Okay, and they were all removed because we had no choice, because they clearly met the criteria for depicting or describing sexual conduct, even though they met the criteria for being selected as school library material. But because they did, and the parent proffered evidence, then we had to remove the book. Now, it's not really as bad as it looks, because, for example, the Duff, Tricks, and the Almost Moon were 3 titles that we only had 1 copy of. in our school libraries, and they were due to be removed anyway due to age and condition and lack of circulation. So, okay, we'll take them off the shelf, right? Right. That's it. So we also have, you can see that the ones in green are ones that have remained on the shelf after, some of them have been through 3 levels of review and remain on the shelf. So we have 4 hearings, one, two, three. We have 4 hearings pending because the district review committee recommended that they stay on the shelf and the objector would like to take it to the next level. Now, after the hearing is finished and after the board votes, the objector has the right to go to the state and request a special magistrate. Now, the special magistrate will not overturn the decision. The special magistrate's job is only to review whether or not the school district followed their procedures in reviewing the material. Now, so what happens in that process is the objector makes a request, and then the school district has to spend 3 days gathering the documentation that they need to send to the state for the state to decide whether or not they're going to take the case. Then if they decide to take the case and they decide that they're going to appoint a special magistrate, guess who gets to pay for the special magistrate? The school district does, right? So the school district gets to pay for someone to decide whether or not we followed our procedures. So right now, our objector, we have 1 special magistrate request pending at the state. It's my understanding that they plan to request a special magistrate for everything that doesn't go their way. So, this is another expense that the school district is incurring because of legislation that affects our school libraries. So that's really kind of all the slides that I have. So now if you guys have questions, if you want to come up here or pass the microphone around, however you want to do it. Right. Hi.
I'm Mary Nutter. In following some of this,
Yeah.
I've noticed that there's been one particular parent that has been objecting
Yes,
to
ma'am.
many of the books.
Uh-huh.
Is there any requirement or limitation to the parent that objects to the book? The child has to be in that school? It seems like this one person.
Well, this one person has a kid in 3 schools.
Oh, she has a kid in 3 schools. Okay.
But they can act as a community member, and any member of the community can object to a book.
I see.
Yes. Now, they have to have lived in the community for a year. We did have a parent who, a community member who wanted to object to some materials, but guess what? They hadn't lived here a year. So we were able to, so come September, we'll probably hear from them again. But yes, there is no, but that is the requirement. Now, there is a bill currently on the floor that says that if you are a community member, not a parent, but a community member objecting to library materials, if you've objected to more than 5 in a calendar year, you have to pay $100.
Oh.
So, right. Yes.
I followed with interest the other day about
Yes.
the discussion about the book Melissa.
Yes.
And I think that's what you were referring to
Mhm.
about that was read. And the discussion seemed to have gotten off topic on 2 particular sites in the book.
Mm-hmm.
The word pornographic
Right.
and dirty books.
Correct.
There weren't
Correct.
any descriptions
Correct.
about either
Right.
of those words.
Correct.
The child,
So
the sibling said to the brother or child,
right.
I know you're not reading any dirty magazines,
Right.
and I know you're not reading pornographic,
Right.
but that was a point of contention.
The parent felt that we were promoting that it was okay to reference those words or those types of materials in a school library book, and that did not meet the selection criteria for school libraries. So that was their issue with those. Now, again, that there was a lot of really unfortunate things that occurred as a result of that viewpoint. But you're right. That was they were promoting, that there was objection. Their objection was, but when actuality, the book was about a transgender child.
It started way,
Yeah.
way back. It's about a transistor,
Yes,
but those two words were not,
correct,
okay,
correct.
thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
My question is, as a concerned citizen, I mean, I'm a parent of
Sure.
of high school students, but as a
Mhm.
concerned citizen, can I, object for, the library not having certain material or certain content or certain information in the library?
No,
Why not?
unfortunately, the state has not given you any options. Many people wanted to say, well, can I go to the state magistrate and say that this book was removed without due process? Nope, sorry.
But can I say, why isn't this material not teaching this information? Like, why is it not showing, like, for example, the African-American experiences?
Right, and so that's an instructional material
Okay.
issue.
Or,
But,
you know,
but school library materials, I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
yeah.
But there is not an avenue for parents who support the materials. Why doesn't if you're saying like, why doesn't your library have any books about? Right, so that would just be the suggestion would be to have a conversation with the media specialist as a community stakeholder to say, I think that this library should have these kinds of books. Right, yes, but there is no formal avenue. Yeah,
Criteria.
Yeah.
And
right.
whatever they are, you know,
Yes.
in terms of.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Stapleton. Thanks so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I had two questions. One, you touched on it just a little bit. You
Mhm.
said at the very end, that you've done a great job at informing us about the costs of this, which has been something that's been bothering me, and as well as the lack of democracy in the decision-making. But, are there options either at the local level or a larger level where somebody who submits an objection, if it goes through this process and it isn't ruled, that they could be, have to be required to pay for the costs of the time of the school board having to go through all this process?
No, there is, however, some federal money that we can request to reimburse us for some of this money. I'm not sure what the process is, but there is some federal money that we can ask for. I don't know what the requirement is, or, you know, if it has to go, I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that there is. And once this is all over, we plan on asking for it. Yes.
Then my second question, I'm not really sure if it's a question or a comment, but it's something that I find really unfortunate, is that all this attention is going on into what our children in our schools are being exposed to,
Mhm.
and yet I don't hear any corollary discussion about what they're doing outside of school, for instance, on social media,
Yeah.
computers, or on all the internet.
One of those things called a phone, right?
Yes,
Right, right.
so it's,
Yes, yes, you're right, you're right. And so, you know, this whole legislation was geared towards, you know, books in school libraries. And as a parent, you certainly have the right to parent your child. You certainly have the right to limit your child's access. But what you don't have the right to do is tell me what my child can't read. Right? And that's really the argument more than anything. But yes, thank you. Yes. Are there any other questions? Oh, I see we have one. Good.
What are the qualifications of the hearing officer?
So our hearing officer, she has a PhD. She has worked with us on all of our student discipline hearings, but lucky for us, she has also got a master's degree in library science. So yes, so she is very qualified to help make these decisions. Yes. Thank you.
I attended along with a couple of other folks here at the last hearing, and it was appalling, the number of professionals sitting there waiting. And the other thing that was really upsetting, and I got really agitated, was how the challenger was badgered the media specialist from the school.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the media specialist from the school, so long story short, and I don't want to call anybody out, but the fact is 90% of these books all are from Terwilliger Elementary School. Terwilliger Elementary School has a brand new library collection that I bought. Okay. I selected those books. I worked with the vendor to build that collection. At the time, we didn't know who the population was going to be. It was still school eye, right? And so then our illustrious former school board leader moved a entire school district over to here. And so now we know who our student population is going to be, but we had already selected the collection. So the certified school library media specialist came with him. She's been standing behind these books that she didn't even buy. I did. And so I've been trying to relieve her of the responsibility of having to be a witness in a hearing for a book that she didn't buy. But I have not been successful, but I can assure you that she will not be attending any more hearings. So, yes, yes.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The phrase
yeah.
burden of proof
Yes.
comes to mind in terms of how these books could ever harm
Mhm.
a
Right.
young reader.
Mhm.
And clearly, you can object,
Mhm.
but, and as someone asked before, is there a way for people to promote
Mhm.
the use of them? But what about just an independent sort of campaign on the benefits
Mhm.
of these books?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Testimonials from
Mhm.
kids who said, this book has changed my
Right.
life,
Right. We would love to have something like that, but I don't know who's got time. I mean, but yes,
like me.
yes, but absolutely.
Saved
Yes.
my life.
We can all remember that book. Can you remember the book? I can remember the book that I read in the school library, that my school librarian, because I was not a reader. My children were not readers. We all are now, but the Trixie Belden Mysteries did it for me. Right? And I was fascinated with Trixie Belden because you know what? She lived in a trailer park. And you know what? So did I. I was one of those kids, so I could relate to her. And so it was fabulous. But everybody has that story. And if we could, if we could put together a campaign like that, it would be amazing. But you know what? It wouldn't make a difference. Because this one parent, this is Beyond Magenta, Understanding Sexual Identity, Being Transgender, AS for Activists, 13 Reasons Why, It Feels Good to Be Yourself, Melissa, Trix, My Maddie, Duff, Pet, Almost Moon, When Aiden, You Don't Know, and Jack, not Jackie, one parent. So, yes, ma'am.
I corresponded with that woman in the fall. I just wanted, my whole point in emailing her was to, who challenged all these books, the one parent. I just wanted her to know that she doesn't represent all families
Mhm.
and that I want diverse books in the school. I have two kids. I have a high schooler and a kindergarten, big
Mhm.
age gap. And I just asked her to please stop,
Mhm.
like you are on this tirade and you're so selfish for doing this.
Mhm.
So I guess I just have a comment. I just wanted to reiterate that most of the parents want diverse books in the schools and
Right.
that we trust we know that they're already pre-vetted,
Mhm.
I'm not scared. Like this woman seems scared that a librarian is gonna chase her kids down and read about radical gender theories or something.
I'm going to sit on you while I read this.
Yes.
And it's going to make you something.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. It's frustrating, but this is the door that the state of Florida has opened.
Yeah.
And we've only got how many? Clay County has hundreds by one person. Hundreds by one person. And guess what? They're all removed. Because their community, many school districts would say, look, I can't deal with this. This is too expensive. We don't have time. We've got real work to do. So just take the book off the shelf. Right? There are many, many school districts in Florida that have taken that approach. We have not, and we will not. And it's because of our community that doesn't believe in it. So thank you. Yes.
I know I'm a pest because I'm always at her meetings to support the school board. And something that everybody's always asking is what can we do? Email the school board, thank them for being courageous and keeping these books on the shelves. And when a hearing is coming up, they will take witness statements. You can email that to a school board member. And on the back tables, I have some samples of books And also what you didn't mention was book looks.
Mhm.
They might
Forgot
be,
about that.
I have some information about book looks back there and you might
Mhm.
want to
Mhm.
just tell them what that
Sure.
is because
So booklooks.org is a website that supposedly is not curated by any one organization, but a group of parents who want to provide information about books. And this, so there's two websites. There's Book Looks and then there's Book Look. Book Look is a website that was curated by the Moms for Liberty. Okay. Book Looks is not curated by the Moms for Liberty. They have, but they have reviewed titles. People have submitted a book review and they give it a rating of, of the content, and they provide page numbers and passages that support their rating. And so sometimes you don't even have to read the whole book to place an objection. You just go to the website and get the page numbers. And I'm not saying that anyone's done that, but it would be easy to just go to the website and get the page numbers and say, oh, no, I read the book on page so-and-so, it says this, and I don't agree with that. Right. So, right. One ends with an S and one does not. So it's really interesting reading. And it's interesting when you look at an objection that has been submitted and you look at the list of page numbers and you look at the passages that they've cited and how coincidental it is that they are exactly the same that are on that website. So, so it's really interesting. Yes, ma'am. No, I'm sorry, but there's not. Yes, it does. Yes, it does create a due process problem because there is no way for you to stand up and say, I don't think this book should be removed, other than speaking up at a school board meeting when it is due to be voted on. But as far as the state of Florida is concerned, there is no avenue for you.
Which then creates an avenue for challenging the entire law.
Go for it. I believe that there have been some lawsuits, but nothing has come of any of them. Yes, sir.
My question is, has there been any work towards lobbying and trying to get the legislature to at least amend this
Yes.
to make it more reasonable?
Yes, so I'm a member of the Florida Association of Media and Educators. We hire a lobbyist group. We employ a lobbyist group. I went to Tallahassee myself with the group a couple months ago, like in January. We have gone 4 times this year with a list of 5 things that we want legislators to look at. And so, yes, we do our best to lobby for school libraries. It's interesting that in the past, the state of Florida has supported school libraries and supported our Florida Power Library program. And the state level district media specialist has always been a member of our organization until 2021. Then they are no longer a member of our organization. They no longer support Florida school libraries. And the website on the state of Florida DOE for school libraries has not been updated in 3 years. Yes.
Have they been, has any of the legislators
Mhm.
been willing to relook at this?
The only thing we've gotten is that $100 for after 5 objections. That's the only relief we have gotten. Now, everybody told us this year, when we went for this legislative session, they said, nothing's going to happen this year. Wait till next year. So we'll see what happens next year. So we'll see. But we have been, yes, we have been lobbying. Hey, Betsy.
Patty, I have 2 questions. One, I know that when I came to a school level
Mhm.
thing, I wasn't allowed to speak as a member of the
Correct.
public.
Mhm.
If I go to a school board meeting,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, then I can speak
You
up.
got
and
3
support.
minutes at the school board meeting.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes.
Also, you were saying that the state mandated that you have to have periodicals that
Mhm.
review the books and have positive reviews, which we've
Mhm.
always done.
Correct.
Does the state provide money
No.
to purchase those? Because
Yes.
those are expensive.
I know.
And to get those to every school librarian, I mean, when I
Right.
was working, we shared them. So you
Right.
didn't always get it in a timely fashion.
Right. So we rely on our biggest vendors of Mackin and Follett to provide those reviews for us.
Okay.
So yes, Yeah.
It's great.
And we also have a subscription to Gale services, and they do have some reviews in there too. But overall, no, they haven't given us any money to support their.
If you need something, you're paying for it.
Yes, ma'am. 100%. 100%. Yes, ma'am.
Recently, one school district had to, or decided to, have parents sign a permission slip before a book could be read in a classroom.
Correct.
Have we had to go to that length here?
So that is an instructional material question, but no, we have not. See, there's a really fine line between taking a library book and reading it. When you read it aloud, it becomes instructional materials because now you're not giving the child the option not to read it. So that's an instructional material issue where if I wanted to read a book about Black history during Black History Month, and I want to do a read aloud, but I have to be sure that I am not violating the instructional materials criteria for not promoting critical race theory, for not, making my children feel bad about anything, whatever that is. I try not to pay attention to the instructional part because my brain can only hold so much. But that does become an instructional material issue. We have not at this district done that. I don't anticipate that happening, but that would be a school-based decision more than anything. Yes, yes.
What's your thoughts on how this is affecting publishers and bookstores?
Well, I can tell you that it's certainly affecting our vendors in that they have a hard time selling books in Florida. It has affected publishers. Well, actually, more than that, it's affected writers and getting their books published because, some publishers are hesitant to publish books on certain topics that are controversial because the book won't sell in Florida or Texas or wherever else, these issues are arising. So it is affecting what's going to be available to our students. 100%. Yes.
At the beginning, you said the classroom libraries had to be scanned. Does that just mean the title page, or does that mean the whole book?
We had to scan the ISBN on the back if they had one. If not, we had to find it in the book. So initially the district was going to accomplish this task, but then we realized we couldn't. When you have an elementary classroom library that's got 1,200 books in it, that's a couple hours right there. So that unfortunately had to fall on the teacher. If the teacher wants to keep their classroom library, they have to scan it. So that's why many of them said, never mind, I'll just put mine away. So it was it's a burden on the classroom teachers. It's a burden on the school library media specialist. We had to make sure that those were posted on the district website. All those things took a lot of time. I'm the one who developed the program, so I kind of lived it for pretty much all summer, but I got it working. And so now I can move on to challenge materials now. So if it starts with a C, it's a bad word in my house. Classroom library, challenge material, Chromebooks, all of it, they're bad words in my house. No C words in my house. So, but again, yeah, censor, that's another one. Yeah, no C words in my house. And my husband actually works for a school district that doesn't have school library media specialists in their school libraries. And they're like, oh, well, just take it off, just don't worry about it. I'm like, no. And so he's like, he goes to work, he goes, okay, look, I've been listening to this for a year and a half. So we really need to do something about this because my wife is not gonna let me sleep until we do something about this. So it's, but it's interesting how every district in Florida has interpreted this legislation. And I don't know if you recently heard, so Governor DeSantis made a statement about, well, this has, some of these book challenges are really frivolous and we need to do something to eliminate the really frivolous book challenges. But if you read the whole article, basically it's let's punish those school districts that have gone to the extreme. Let's punish those school districts that because the legislation is so vague, they don't know how to interpret it, they just take it away. So let's just punish them instead of clearing up the mud of the legislation. So yeah, so it's very messy. It's very messy, but hopefully it's going to be done soon.
Patty's giving another talk this afternoon.
Yes.
Women's Club in High Springs.
Yes.
Putting the word out there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We have another